Hi, Michael. I'm a huge fan of yours. I feel like your huge breakout with Ugly Betty sort of coincided with my personal whatever coming out, whatever you want to call it, like the burgeoning of queer characters on TV, you, Jack McFarlane. So you are a very present, I don't say a very present queer presence, but that's where it is in my head. So um long story short, thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you. That's so I thank you, and that's so nice to hear. And ditto. I mean, that was my experience too. That was a very uh it was such a formative time, you
Yeah,
know.
it was very specific time that I feel like I recall a lot or I mention a lot that I feel like it was sort of like you had to be there kind of
Hmm.
thing to understand
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Um,
Where do you live?
I live in the flat conservative state of Ohio.
Uh-huh.
We live in a very good gay liberal bubble surrounded by shit, which is great. Awesome. If you want to get scared, you just leave the city limits. That's fine.
Gotcha.
Um, I love this show so much. I watched the whole thing in like 36 hours. It was just I could not stop watching it. And I know a lot of other people on the site feel the same way. And there's something that I love about your character. I say lovingly impatient. I find myself very much relating to that aspect of the character. Um, but something that I was sort of mentioning earlier, I sort of love how you play a lot of characters that are adjacent to your, I don't want to say authentic self, but I'll say authentic self. And I wanted to know from you what kind of conversations you had with Bill, the producers, about sort of bringing your perspective to this character because it feels very specific to me.
They were really great about, I mean, the writers are from the very beginning, they wanted me to be infused in the character. They wanted there to
Mhm,
be like they wanted the characters to be really close to each other,
mhm,
um, for authenticity's sake.
mhm,
And um, like early on, I got on Zoom with all the writers and just sort of talked about my life, talked about my upbringing, and talked about the things that the kinds of things that I thought I was good at as an actor, that I could be good in. And they were really, like they made my character from Texas, which is me. I'm from Texas, and
mhm.
my character's last name is Lorenzo, which is my middle name. So like there's little things like that they sort of put in, to kind of make us make us more authentic and more real. But I will say that this show, more than any other thing I've been on, has been beloved by my friends and peers and coworkers and
Yeah.
acquaintances more than any other show. Um,
Why do you think that is?
I think it's super well. I think, and the other thing, they all tell me that like it's like I'm not even acting. They're
Mm,
like, "You're not even
okay.
acting." And they're like, "Well, that's acting too." But they're like, "You're not." I guess that I'm the closest, as you say, to this guy, um, of any other character, and I love
Mm,
that. I mean, like I played some mean people. I played some mean characters, so I think I get why that's, I'm not a mean person, um and he's a very nice guy, but
yeah.
uh but I think it's yeah, I really I think the reason why more people of my friend group or acquaintance group, or people that work in show business and stuff are into the show is because uh it's a show that really draws you in. It doesn't give you all the information. You really have to
Hmm.
invest. Um, I
Hmm.
like how we pick up in the middle of relationships. There's not a
Yeah.
lot of laying pipe, as they say.
Hmm.
Not like tons of backstory. You don't have to walk in and say, "I know you from this, and I know you from this, and hey, nice to meet you."
Hmm.
There's not a lot of that. So it asks the audience to like join us.
Hmm.
It's almost like join our show already in progress, And I think that that makes an audience really invested, especially in like a super savvy audience
Mhm.
that can see right through the pipe. You know, nothing against like shows with pipe. I've been in those too, and they're really fun and they're great. Or like a procedural show where you know
Yeah.
you just hop in and it's all the information that you need right up front. And I think that those have a great place too. But for people who want to be stimulated by TV, because like sometimes I just want to watch a movie I've seen before,
Oh yeah.
or I just want to watch the action sequences in a Marvel movie, and then I'll
Yeah.
speed scenes. You know, like sometimes my brain just needs that. But if I want to be stimulated, if I want to like put a show on and like really like figure out the psychosis of every family member in succession,
Mhm.
or you know, figure out whatever, you know, like why is what you know that's a different kind of show. And I think
Yeah.
that this show is like that. Like, who are these people? What makes them tick? And how do they know each other? And how can they help each other? Because it's really the thing about the show is like it's people who love each other and want to help each other. And
Yeah.
that's really nice to watch. I think that's a really comforting thing to watch. People who love each other and want to help make each other better.
That's interesting that you say that because I was listening to a podcast this morning. I think it was with Lisa Ann Walter from Abbott Elementary, and she was talking about how there is a type of entertainment right now that I think audiences are naturally latching onto that has elements of kindness and authenticity where the characters can be good to one another. And I feel like when I was listening to that, I feel like you can include shrinking in that category just because, sure, they're going through a lot of high stakes, emotional, horrible stuff, but I sort of feel like these characters are going to be there for each other.
Right.
And even if they sort of like your character and Jason's character maybe spend time away from each other, those tethers are there that will bring them back. So that I thought that when I watched Shrinking all the way through, it has a very sort of open-hearted nature to it. It's sort of dealing with themes of therapy and bettering yourself, and I feel like that's a reason why audiences have been clinging to the show so much.
I think so
Yeah.
too. Yeah. I think that's really insightful because, well, we're all, you know, we're all very different and
Hmm.
very divided, but we all went through something together.
Yeah. Well.
And that was, and we're all grieving it still.
Hmm.
I mean, sometimes I remember a dark day of the pandemic and it's like it's happening all over again.
Yeah.
Um, my gosh, that fear or that, worry. I was at a restaurant last night and the waiter had gloves and a mask on. And I was like, oh,
Mm.
wow, that was, whatever reason that person is doing that now, great, fine, no
Yeah.
judgment. I remember that. I remember wearing masks and a
Me
glove,
too.
how
Oh,
painful that
wiping
was.
down your groceries and stuff because you
Wiping my
just
groceries.
didn't
Of
know
course.
the crazy
Yes,
uncertainty of everything. Oh God,
absolutely.
never want to go back
And
there.
we went through that and
Hmm.
we're still coming out of it. We're still like, we'll spend the rest of our lives talking
We're going to
about that.
compare a lot of other things to that a lot for
Absolutely.
years and years and years.
Absolutely.
Um,
So talking about grief, talking about mental health
mhm.
is still kind of new, I think, for
Yeah.
us, society. It's something that, you know, between like the social media and the political dumpster fire and COVID,
Hmm.
has become this sort of like necessary and acceptable thing. I mean, we just had a senator um, put himself in the hospital for depression. That is
Hmm.
not something that we would have heard about or would have happened 5 years
Especially
ago.
without like any judgment too. The amount of like, well, I mean, there is still a horrible amount of stigma along mental health. It is getting a lot better because
Right.
of how we had to sort of collectively deal with it. But I mean, like, can you imagine if that happened in like even in 2010, all the crap that would have been put on him or people in his life? My God.
Yeah. Or
Um.
2016. Imagine if that had been going
Mhm.
on during that election.
Yeah.
You know, he wouldn't have. Hillary couldn't even get the flu.
No. No. I thought about that the other day. I thought about that. Total side note. Just thought about like the debate where he followed her around the whole time. I was like, oh
Yeah,
god, that was a real life incident. Holy shit. Um,
no.
Harrison Ford's character tells you your self awareness is your best characteristic. When I rewatched that scene, I was just like, I don't know if he's being sarcastic or genuine, but I do feel like um, I think that's a really good, succinct sentence. But I wanted to know from you what you think Brian's best characteristic is.
Well, I actually I think the self-awareness is real,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he is quite self-aware. And I think that he's even aware of the things that he buttons up and the things that
Mm-hmm.
that he keeps in. Um, but to me, his best quality is his positivity. Not that
Yeah.
it's always useful or it's always what other people want around them, but it is a really good quality, and it does it is
Hmm.
it really lightens a room.
Yeah.
And that kind of comes from Bill Lawrence. You know, Bill Lawrence says everything goes my way. That's his kind of mantra.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, they put that in the show, and it annoys people as Brian annoys people by
Yeah.
saying it. I think Bill admits that like it's annoying to people, but it's a really nice energy to come in the room, you
Yeah.
know, because it's not really like everything goes my way, suck it. It's more
Yeah.
like, isn't this great?
Yeah.
How is this? When it's somebody like Bill, who's a leader and who has so many people that like look to him and work for him, it's everything going his way is good for all of us.
Yeah. That's
So
it can only be positive, of course.
yeah, it's like, oh, Ted Lasso got 20 Emmy nominations. That's good. That's good
Yeah.
for us. Great. We like that.
Yeah.
Uh, so like that energy is really nice. And like I'm sort of like that to an extent. I mean, I don't know that
Mhm.
I'm quite as confident as Brian or as Bill, but I like to lead with positivity. And
Mhm.
I find that it is easier. It's easy. It's sort of easy to lead with positivity if you just like give over to it.
Yeah.
And it makes interactions so much easier because you can just be positive and be bubbly and compliment somebody or whatever. And um, it was definitely for me going into this job where I didn't know anybody and I'd never met anybody. I knew one of the writers,
Wow. That's kind of crazy.
but I
Okay.
didn't, and that's so rare. It's
Yeah.
so rare, to get to this point, you know, in life and have a job where you know, I mean, not that I've done that much, but I've worked with a bunch of people at this point,
Yeah.
and it's clear that there's like nobody, not even a camera crew, nobody, and um, sort of being close to Brian and being not unlike Brian made being on set easy.
Mm.
I knew who I was.
That really surprises me that you sort of didn't know, or at least were acquainted with anyone, just because the sort of the rapport that you folks have in those group scenes, those are very alive, very like I don't want to say rat a tat tat, but that's like it's sort of I don't know, those are some of the most joyous scenes in the whole show. So it sort of goes along with kind of what you were saying. This is not a show where you meet people at the very beginning. You jump right into it. So it's the chemistry is very, very palpable. To
Yeah,
me anyway, it was. Um
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, and I think part of that is like some great actors that
yeah.
just like, I think Jason Segel could have chemistry with anybody. He's just so
Hmm.
very, very charming, and
Hmm.
it's so real. And he cares about people, even people he's just met. He really does care. And Jessica Williams is such a brilliant improviser that she's got chemistry with everybody because she's always looking to, because the thing about it, the thing about a great, and they're both really good improvisers. The thing
Hmm.
about a great improviser is they need you to be as good as them. And so they're
Hmm.
helping you at the same time they're helping them. No improviser wants their scene partner to look worse.
Oh
They,
yeah.
and so when you're so good at it like they are,
Hmm.
they're their prime focus is how are we alike? How is our chemistry working here? So I think that the especially, you know, like Jason being the lead
Mhm.
and Jessica being such a main thrust of the show.
Yeah.
That energy, the improv energy really makes for great chemistry.
Yeah.
And the writing, you know,
Mhm.
that the writing picks up in the middle of something, I think spurs good chemistry.
Yeah. I can see that the chemistry only, especially in an improvisational atmosphere, only lifts you up to be as good with the other people because you don't want to improv with somebody. You don't want to leave them behind. Essentially, you want to take them along with you. Um, I did want to ask about a specific scene. The throw up proposal section, just because I love how you deliver the line when Jason says, "I threw up." And Brian could have been horribly mad. He could have been, he could have raged at him, but you very sweetly say to him, "I know, bud." And I think that is very, very kind and sweet and sort of an indicator to the relationship that they have. And I was curious if you could just tell me a little bit about that scene because I think about that interaction. It makes me laugh. It's so
Oh, I
funny.
love I love that. Yeah, that was a really cool scene to shoot because well, I got to be so like centered in the song
Hmm.
and he was like and I got to play like neurotic like party guy and
We never see him like that until like that part of the season.
yeah, you don't really know that that's him until he's like, this is how this is gonna work,
Hmm.
and he's really nervous about if Charlie's gonna say yes or not, and he's put a lot a lot into this. But I also love playing big comedy,
Yeah.
and that was like a big comedy scene with um a great comic, Jason. Um, and everyone's good in that. Like, I love watching that scene back,
Hmm.
that long sequence because it's sort of the whole show. I mean, it's able to hold big comedy, old guy stoned, sad guy drunk, and these flashbacks. It
Hmm.
sort of holds all of it, and it kind of is like a bit of a microcosm of the whole show that we can be
Yeah.
big comedy and really heartbreaking at the same time. The conversations that he has as he's moving through that
Oh
party,
God.
flashbacks, they're so sad. It's so upsetting. And watching Jason play that sad drunk guy, which is such a specific kind of drunk,
Hmm.
and playing drunk is not easy. And playing sad drunk is really not easy to hold all that stuff at the same time is so challenging, and he does it so perfectly.
Hmm.
I can't think of a better drunk scene, like a better sad drunk, that specific kind of drunk where you're a sad drunk person and it's a comedy.
Yeah.
I can't think of its equal. And on the other side, Harrison playing old guy who's getting stoned for the first time is also perfect. He's so
Yeah.
good. Those two guys in that sequence are so brilliant to me. And then we have this big comedy in the middle of it. I just love that. I'm so proud of that episode. I just think it's so good. Randall Winston,
That's
so
oh
good.
God, that's one of the best episodes of the whole season. It is sort of like I don't want to say like multiple plates spinning all at once, but it really really is, and it could go wrong so easily, and it doesn't. And those anytime that you see Jason's character interact, it's like oh my God, your marriage was so great. She's like every single time, and yeah, all right. Um, I think I am out of time with you, Michael, but I gotta just say that like I don't know. There's a lot of stuff crackling underneath, even just like your character's interactions with his father and sort of the parallels to like the Cone of Silence scenes with Harrison. I think the scenes that you have with him are very, very lovely because there is sort of like an undercurrent of queer characters talking to their dads. We've seen a lot of like tragic films, TV that deal with that, but there's something about those scenes I can't really kind of articulate that I has a really lovely quality to it. So I just wanted to say that before I let you go. Um,
Yeah,
and I
I
just
was I really loved sorry to interrupt, but
no, it's okay.
I I sort of love that, this show kind of is like any combination of characters is interesting, and you never know who's going to be on the couch, you
Yeah.
know, um, and that my character is able to give advice to Harrison that is
Hmm.
professional advice, but it's also personal parent-child advice.
Yeah.
It's sort of like it's just that's just great. That's just great
Yeah.
that this show has that. That this show's able to like both, everybody in this show can be the shrink and can be shrunk, and that my character has a daddy issue and
Hmm.
he sees a daddy with an issue and he's able to like, even if it's like not exactly, it's not quite taken, the advice isn't quite taken, it is. He hears me and I get to say, I would want if you were my dad, dot dot dot. It's that kind of beautiful thing.
Hmm.
And I hope we get more of that because I think that's a really cool
Yeah. I think
aspect.
there is something that the show does very well that sort of silently hits the notion of like the power of listening, even if it isn't strictly a therapist and a patient. It is you're just talking with your friend, like that is a therapy session in essence. And sort of, all the garbage that we went through that we were talking about before, it sort of, I think, has taught us, hopefully, that listening to people is a much better tool than talking or yelling and stuff like that. um okay, well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for letting me geek out on you a little bit. I love the show. I'm really rooting for you guys this season. It's just a really, really sweet, beautifully written, beautifully performed show, so thank you so much.
Thanks, Joey.
Yeah.
What a pleasure.
Yeah.
Nice
Have a good day. Stay safe.
to meet you.
Bye.